You don't need to have a book to speak. And that's a good case in point. A lot of people don't have a book to speak. There's two things to it. You're missing an opportunity to elevate your credibility if you don't have a book.
You are now listening to the podcast where authors inspire listeners to become authors, the Going North Podcast. I'm your host, certified self-leadership trainer, best-selling author, and book enthusiast, Dom Brightman. And you're going to be listening to a different author that will inspire you to join the business of immortality, known as authorship. Now let the fun begin. Today's episode is sponsored by the GoingNorthPodcast.com shop. And we got some new designs on the website, baby. That's right. Check out the new designs. We got two new designs. One is outread your competition to outlead your competition. And the other one is perfection is completion, but excellence is exceeding expectations. Because when you feel like something's perfect, it's truly not. But when you seek excellence, you are after exceeding the expectations of the folks you serve and your past self. So head over to GoingNorthPodcast.com.shop and pick up some more magical gear in multiple forms in more ways than one. Now let's get on with the show. And today on the highlight reel builder for authors known as GMP, the Great Glorious and Glamorous, it's the Going North Podcast. And we got another super special, awesome human for you today, courtesy of Podmatch.com, the wonderful site where podcast guests get to connect with podcast hosts. And if they're cool, they're freaking in. And today's guest is cooler than two cucumbers. Let me tell you a bit about him, because today's wonderful author, y'all, he is a father, a husband, as well as a literary agent, which is a rarity for this show, as well as a keynote speaker and a thought leader architect. And most of all, he's the Chief Imaginative Officer, the CIO, and founder of Emerson Consulting Group Incorporated. So let's give it up for Mr. K to the L himself, Ken Lizotte. How you doing today, Ken?
Thank you, Dom. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Doing fabulous.
Well, I got to say one thing about your intro. You said you used the phrase "cool as a cucumber." I did something this year I haven't done in years, and that's I started a garden, and there are cucumbers are coming up strong right now, Dom. So I'll have to send you about a dozen of them.
We've reached a new level on the coolness meter. My man's cooler than a dozen cucumbers. He's got a whole farm, a whole garden, baby.
Get ready.
Well, that's what I'm talking about, indeed. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. Well, as with all introductions, they're not allowed to be 7,000.5 years long, and I probably forgot a whole bunch of stuff in the introduction. So my goodness, am I filling in any cavities I may have missed about you?
No, not really. I think maybe I'm not sure if you said that I'm an author as well, and I've been an author for most of my adult life. It's true what you said in the intro about me being a literary agent. I'm that and more. What I do is I work particularly with business experts who have wanted to write a book and get a book published. Sometimes my most recent client author, she'd been thinking about doing a book for 30 years, and she never could get to it. Didn't know how to get around to it or whatever. And somebody gave her my name, and we got together, and her book is now out. It took about a year and a half to do it and all, but it's out. And that's the difference. Just to give you a sense of what I do, the difference between me and the typical literary agent is that I can do what they do, which is to try to find a publisher for somebody, or I can go the other route. If you want to do a book, the other route is to self-publish in one form or another, and I have a team that works on that. And then the last thing is, what happens when you get a book published? What do you do then? And it took me a number of years to kind of have that question be thrown to me by my client when I realized I know a lot about media and publicity as well. So I've incorporated a book promotion program that people can get the word out about their books. And, a lot of different things that help people, particularly, again, business experts, entrepreneurs, business owners, to position themselves as the leading thinkers in their industry or in their field. And becoming a thought leader, therefore, is what I'm really all about, trying to help people be known as a credible, effective thought leader in their field.
That's what I'm talking about right there. As I'm talking about indeed. And the beautiful thing about it is that if I'm not mistaken, when folks actually sign up with you as with having you as their agent, especially if they're in the business field, it's usually 100% success rate when it comes to publishing.
Yes, that is true. I'm referring there in particular to finding a publisher if somebody wants one. And I'll tell you why that happens. I'm a little different in terms of compensation from the typical literary agent, in that I take a fee. Which I work. You hire me like you'd hire any consultant or any service provider, and depending on the project, I would set a flat fee, and that I'd be paid in that way. Now that's different from the traditional literary agent because that the agents, even today, as they always have, will not charge a fee generally, but they'll get their compensation if they can. That's a key phrase. What I'm saying, putting in there, if they can, from proceeds that a publisher pays an author, and that come from royalties based on sales of a book. So that can all sound great to people. Oh, well, I really don't have to invest my money, and I basically get the service for free because I wouldn't be paying them. But the problem with that is that you get what you pay for, my friend. There's no such thing as a free lunch or a free book. So what happens is the motivation is very different for me than from my competitors. The motivation for me to get you, my new client, and my wannabe author, a publisher, is so that you will then go, you'll get your book published, and you will people say to you, well, how'd you make this happen? And you would say to them, well, I hired this great guy, Ken Lizotte, and his firm, and they it took them a while because of my book. A lot of publishers were rejecting it, but he found a way to make it happen. Whereas what's different with the traditional literary agent is that if they're not seeing potential monetary results right up front in the beginning, they put your book on the book proposal. That's what you create, a proposal, not a full book. They put your proposal on the back burner and they go on to what seems like more lucrative clients that they might have. My motivation is just to work and work and work until the job gets done. And that's why I can say I'm 100% effective, because I've had a few, not many, but I've had a few projects that took many months. One of them took actually over a year, but I didn't stop trying, and I was able to find a publisher because, again, that's what creates great word of mouth about what I do. So that's kind of a quick synopsis of how the literary agent service works and how it is I can be claiming 100%. And that's 26 years, 100%, maybe 300 or so clients over that period of time.
Sweet. That's what I'm talking about right there. 26 years and counting. That's right,
Yeah.
indeed. That's right, indeed. He already passed the threshold where the car insurance gets to go a little lower for the youngins. That's right, indeed.
I don't have, you say onions, I don't have onions. Say onions or
Oh,
youngins?
oh, youngins. Youngins.
Or young onions.
And that's huge, and that's great, and that's really, I guess you're one of your expert's edge in a way, just to play off of one of your book titles, because
Right.
that's the thing with like a lot of typical literary agents. If you find them, and it's like, oh wow, is this going to be lucrative? It's like, oh, I feel like it's not going to be. All right, I guess I'll just let this be on the pile, indeed. So, my
Yeah.
goodness, so any advice for aspiring authors to get their book ready for an agent if they want to go that route?
hmm yeah. So how that works is this. A lot of people mistakenly think they have to write the book first. And that's true if it's a fiction book, if it's a novel, or if it's something like a memoir, things of that nature. That when you read it, in order for your book to be purchased, if it's published, it's got to be so well written that if I was to browse your book, and your book is a novel, that thing has really got to captivate me. And so it's got to captivate the publishers as well. But again, I don't focus on that aspect of writing. I focus on the business book market, and business books are my stock and trade, and it's a little different in winning a publisher over that's for a business book, because the publishers are not interested. They don't care as much about how well the book is written, because they're going to provide an editor, and they're going to help get that in shape. They're not that concerned about a business author being a great literary having great literary skills. Well, what they're more concerned about is the content, the ideas. Is there really something new here? Is there something that their readers, and that we say readers with publishers, we're talking about buyers, but the buyers' readers are going to really learn something for their businesses that's going to increase the value of their businesses. So it's the theme of the book, it's the focus of the book, it's the concepts in the book that are important, and for that reason, they don't need to even see a sample chapter. They just need to know what's the title that you've chosen, which they might change later, but just to give them an idea of what your book's about. What's a brief synopsis of your book? And then what would the table of contents look like in your mind? And that gives them a sense of the inside of the book. And they're able to then take that to their colleagues in the publishing house, and basically, like a lawyer in a court case, argue the case for this particular book, the case meaning the decision to actually publish this book. And if the what's called the acquisition editor is able to successfully argue that, then there'll be a vote on publishing your book, and that vote will be based on everybody agreeing this is a book that they think can sell. Now they don't know it can sell. If there's one thing that's true of publishers, they make more mistakes than they get things right, and they would admit, but they have to take a gamble, and that's why they reject. They actually reject maybe, I don't know, 100 to every one that they accept. So it's a proposal, and what's what I do when I take on a new client. We meaning me and my editor, my staff editor, work with you on getting this proposal in shape, and then it's our job to go to the publishers directly and present this proposal, and follow up with them if I'm not hearing from them, or follow up with them if they have questions, and whatever they might need, and then move that process along. And typically what happens is there's at least one, if not two, three, or four publishers who are interested in any given book. And that's because I've been at this for a while, so I know how to put together an effective proposal. And that's how that process goes. It's not write the book first. It's create the proposal and see how the publishers respond to it.
Sweet. There we go. So I'm talking about indeed. So I'm talking about indeed. Definitely some good information right there because most folks would be like, man, maybe I should have my freaking book done before approaching an agent if
Yeah.
I eventually find one. But it's like, oh,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah. Mhm. It's exactly what they do. Now, I will say this: if you've got a book idea and you've got an idea, but you're not quite sure in your mind, it's not quite fleshed out. It doesn't hurt you to start writing it if you can, or outlining it extensively or something like that. It certainly doesn't hurt. But the idea that you have to have your book all written really well, maybe have an editor go through it and just spend all that time on it. That's not the way you go about winning a business book publisher.
Sweet. That's what I'm talking about indeed. At the end of the day, it's still going to involve putting that pen to paper and getting to work. That's right, indeed. That's
Yeah.
right, indeed. So, my goodness, what was it like on the other side before becoming an author? Was that something always on your radar eventually before you eventually became a literary agent?
Yeah, it was for me. I've been a writer ever since eighth grade when my eighth grade teacher had started an eighth grade class newspaper, basically, or newsletter or something like that. And I was given the assignment of writing about NCAA, the college football that used to be on TV every Saturday. And I was going to report on that every week. And although I played sports, always compared myself to the kids in class, the guys in class who I knew or I felt were much better at playing sports than I was. And I had this naive idea that that would translate into them being better writers than me. But it turned out I was the best writer. My college football reports was more creative and more smooth and polished and like that. And I didn't realize that I was smooth and polished. But it was one of those revelations. And I went on into high school and college, and I wrote columns and articles and things like that. And I just really became a writer. But when I graduated from college, I didn't necessarily go right into writing. I wasn't quite sure how to go about that, but it was always on my mind. So I had some various jobs for the 10 or so years after leaving college. But then just really wanted to be a writer. I got to a point I really wanted to be a writer. And as I did make the transition into writing articles, writing a book was something that always fascinated me. When I'd see authors on TV talking about whatever they'd be talking about, and there was something about a book that was more important to me. And I actually have a daughter right now who's 29 at this point, and she's actually a really really great feature writer, and she lives in New York, and she's a great writer, but writing articles is more important to her than writing a book. Whereas for me, writing a book was always really the holy grail. So I did make the transition, and I started spending time with other authors. And there was one literary agent that I got to know, and he eventually brought me on to a project where he needed a writer, took a chance on me, and I did really well at that too, that particular book. And he used to take me down to New York and introduce me to publishers, not literary agents, because that was what he was, but a really great mentor. So it got me into the whole process of writing books. And to this day, now at this point in my life, written and published 9 of them. And the ones you keep referring to, Don, one is called The Expert's Edge. Subtitle is Become the Go-To Authority People Turn to Every Time. And that was published by McGraw-Hill. And like it sounds, The Expert's Edge. The publisher at first wanted to call it The Art of the Expert. I said, no, I'm not trying to tell people how to be experts. I'm trying to tell them how to be an expert with an edge, really rise above their competition. So they agreed to change the title to that. And that's essentially a book that talks all about some of the things I've just spoken to you about just now, as well as other ways to position yourself as a thought leader. So the Expert's Edge is one, and I have a sequel to that called The Speaker's Edge, the ultimate go-to guide for locating and landing lots of speaking gigs. And frankly, Dom, sitting here with you, I consider this a speaking gig. So I've landed another speaking gig by sitting here with you, and that's one of the things to keep in mind now, which 5 or so years ago when I wrote the book before the pandemic and the lockdown and Zoom and all of that, man, I mean, speaking was always go into a room, there's an audience there waiting for you, and speak. But the rise of podcasts and Zoom casts and all of that has changed the landscape so that again, this kind of thing that we're doing should be considered a speaking gig because there are people listening, presumably, right? We know they're out there, right?
Oh yeah, they're definitely out there. Funny enough, it kind of reminds me of this one pre-recorded conversation when I was the guest on another podcast. He's like, "Yep, we got the two audiences. We got the humans and we got the bots." It's like, yeah, we got to make sure the humans and the bots enjoy what you're saying, so that way the bots push it out. I'm like, you know what? It's kind of silly, but he's right.
Yeah, you're pushing it out is what it's really all about.
That's right, indeed. And definitely love the Expert's Edge. At least the first edition went through I'd say the first third. I think I got to page 120 out of the book. So yeah, and funny enough, I think the one of the stories that sticks out to me the most is how you went to a speaking event and you heard this very enthralling speaker and you enjoyed what they were saying, but they didn't have a book. So it's like, well, they heard the great speech. It's like you probably have a lot or two in your head, but you don't have anything to take home with you after the speech is all said and done to remember them by. Heck, if you want to contact them a few years down the road, heck, maybe even a few days down the road. So, my
Yeah,
goodness, any words of encouragement for especially for speakers who don't have their books published yet?
yeah, I love that story too because I've never forgotten it. The thing to keep in mind about a book, first of all, to answer your question real quickly, you don't need to have a book to speak, and that's a good case in point. A lot of people don't have a book to speak. There's two things to it. You're missing an opportunity to elevate your credibility if you don't have a book. Because, I mean, I remember lots of speakers, I'd be sitting in the audience and they'd be showing their PowerPoints. And then they'd say, well, if anybody wants my PowerPoint, I'd be happy to send them over to you when, after we're done today. And that's all well and good. But that speaker missed something by having PowerPoints only, by not having at least an article, let's say, that was a reprint that he could pass out to all of us, and or a book that he could either have for sale or even give away. I've even given away books sometimes, my books to an audience. And there's a level of credibility that comes if you're not just a speaker. But the other aspect of it is that if you do have a book, that will also help you get speaking engagements, number one. Number two, it can elevate your credibility in a way that you not only get speaking engagements, but maybe you have a higher level of what they give you back, meaning they'll pay you travel expenses, they'll set you up in accommodations or whatever, hotel, or whatever. They will give you a speaking fee, etc., because you are seen to them to be a higher level of expert. So it's a tool. A book is a tool for marketing your business and marketing yourself and making it more likely that you're going to get speaking engagements in front of audiences where there's business there. that's going to be the right target audience, the right target market. And it's happened to me so many times that somebody would come out of the audience after I was all done and say, you're what you're talking about is something that I really want. Like I really want to do a book, or I really want to help with writing articles or publishing articles and things like that. And can you help me? Can you work with me? And I've gotten very big clients out of that. But it helped enormously for me to have a book to get me there, as well as to maintain my credibility. And even just with you reading my book and being able to comment on it. But that story that I told that you related, man, I'm telling you, just to give people an idea, this speaker was just fantastic. He was a motivational speaker, and he had these great audio visuals to support it, and he had a great presence on stage. It was just great, and he had about 700 people in the audience, and it just felt like everybody was enthralled by this guy. And what happens is when it's over, you kind of pour out of the assembly room, and you feel like, oh, that was great. Now, how could I learn more about what this guy had to say? And you look around for a book for sale, and there isn't any. Or maybe he comes out and signs a few autographs or something like that, but you can't take him home. It's not him, but you got to take what he is able to offer you home. And that, again, in along the lines of what I was just describing about the multiple benefits of having a book, the next thing that can happen is somebody, like in his case, goes home, reads the book, and maybe contacts his firm and wants to hire them for something, or at the very least passes, says to other people that they know, this is a great book. You should read it. You should buy it, and all of that. It's amazing. And if nothing else, John, having a book. If I had had a book from that day from that speaker, I would be able to tell you and your audience his name. I don't remember his name anymore. There's nothing for me. He didn't put me on a mailing list or an email list or anything like that. He didn't follow up. So I I wouldn't know where to begin on trying to track down who he was after all these years. So you don't want that. You want people to remember you, your business, your value proposition. You're trying to attract followers who are going to basically help you out directly or indirectly to build your business and beat your competition.
Amen to that. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. And my goodness, it makes it even more funny is like you probably didn't have a notebook or anything to write his name down on. I imagine that's probably made it worse.
I might have, but I can't. It's been a number of years since that happened. So I mean, I think I did know his name for a little while, but you lose those things. You lose it to memory. You lose the slip of paper or whatever, and nothing like having the book on your shelf with that name on there.
That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. So get her done if you're on the fence. That's right, indeed. Jump off the fence. Don't be a turtle on the fence post. That's right, indeed. Folks will be like, "How the heck you get here, buddy?" Like, nah, just jump off the fence. Get to having it done.
Right, right.
So my goodness, my goodness. So since you've been on so many interviews promoting the good work that you're doing, not only to show off the wonderful wisdom you have, but also showing off the wisdom of others, is there a question that you wish others would ask you more often when you're being interviewed?
How can people get in touch with you, Ken? And will you take my credit card number right now? And the second part, I'd say absolutely. I'd just say that, yeah, that's probably, I don't know. We've covered a lot of good ground here in terms of what my message is. To answer your question seriously, maybe it would be, how do I know that my ideas for a book or speaking are really worth more than somebody else's? I get that a question of that sort from time to time. They say, "Well, I don't really do anything different. I'm a sales expert, but the things that I teach my clients at the companies that I go to are not anything different from somebody else." So, I mean, how am I a thought? How could I be a thought leader? And first of all, I refer to that as what I call thought leader jitters, just getting a little nervous about it. But the second thing is that you are a thought leader, in my mind, if you have a client, have clients, have had clients, continue to have clients who actually pay you, a real client, to do a service for them, particularly if they bring you back to do it again. And to them, you are a thought leader. But the thing is, you're also a best kept secret if you're not getting the word out. So if you're not writing a book, you're not writing articles, you're not doing speaking engagements, you're not getting interviewed by the media, all those kinds of things, then you're a best kept secret, and not a known thought leader. You don't have a reputation as a thought leader. But the fact that you're a thought leader to those people, even though it's kind of a secret to everybody else, to those clients, means that you are a thought leader. I'm telling your audience right now how the book publishing system works. As I explained about a proposal for a business book as opposed to writing a whole book, I'm not the only person that can come on your show, Dom, and talk about that. It's the way it is. And I wrote about it in my book, and I'm talking about it now. So, in that sense, it's not something that's really super original, but I can tell stories that relate to how I do it or how it works, and examples based on my clients. Like, what did I say in the beginning? I said, a woman came to me who had been thinking 30 years of writing a book. And then she signed on with me, and my team and I got things in shape for her over time, and her book is now published. Well, other people can tell a story like that too, but I'm telling the story. And so I'm the thought leader right now. And everybody in the audience who has a profession or has a business and has been, doing well with clients and customers over the year, they're thought leaders too. They don't have to be the most original of anybody who's ever come down the pike. They just need to have faith that it's different if it's you, because you're different from me. I'm different from him or her or whatever. So it's different, but you're still, a lot of the basics might still be the same. So you don't, so maybe that's the question. Do you have to be truly original practitioner in order to be a thought leader? And the answer is no. But you are more original than you think you are. So have some faith and get your credit card out and hire me.
Gotta love that one liner right there. You are more original than you think you are. That's right, indeed.
Exactly. It's so true.
That's what I'm talking about, indeed. Wise words from Ken, indeed. That's right, indeed. So, my goodness, so with all this wisdom you've acquired and all the folks you've helped to become thought leaders, my goodness, I'm pretty sure there have been some setbacks along the way. So, what would you consider your biggest setback? And heck, maybe even in life that actually became a setup for your biggest success?
Well, setbacks, which we also refer to as failures or more big mistakes or something, as a lot of us know, are learning experiences. So I can't think of a setback that's one big incidence, but what comes to me when you ask that is my early years doing this, and things that I learned didn't work, that I then either could change or stop doing, and that over time that refines my approach and my understanding of what can work. Nothing works 100% except my finding a publisher for people. I better not say that nothing works 100% because that is truly my percentage. Like for example, when I started this, the wisdom about a book proposal, and it's still the wisdom today for a lot of people, conventional wisdom, is that included in a proposal should be a sample chapter, and even two sample chapters. And I said that was true of being a novelist and a fiction writer, but in the case of business, it's not. So here's what used to happen. I would follow that wisdom and I'd have my client do a sample chapter or two, or I would hold it back. I think I'm got to think back now, but I would hold it back, waiting for the publisher to ask for it. And I would go through book after book where the publisher never asked for it, but they did offer a contract anyway. They never asked for a sample chapter. But there would be a few that would. There was one in particular editor at the American Management Association who would always say, well, this all looks pretty good, but I don't see a sample chapter. Could you send it to me? So I'd send him that sample chapter, and invariably, in the next couple of weeks, he would send it back to me and say, well, I went through the sample chapter. I don't know if the writing is really that good, so I think we're going to pass. And that happens enough time for me to say, I don't think that it's helpful to send a sample chapter. There, you kind of sometimes they might be looking for a reason to reject it because they get so many proposals, and so that was kind of a setback in the sense that I would not be able to land that particular publisher for my client. But it also taught me that I was right in my theorizing about sample chapters, that despite all the conventional wisdom, don't do it unless you absolutely have to. And, again, 99% of the publishers that have offered contracts to my clients have not asked for a sample chapter.
Sweet. Good deal right there. Nice little inside scoop, little inside information. Cause like, oh wow, all right. As long as the
Yeah,
idea is really good enough. I mean, having it just in case, but you don't even need it.
exactly. Yeah.
Ah, that's what I'm talking about. Well, and speaking of chapters of books, your wonderful book, The Speaker's Edge, the ultimate go-to guide for locating and landing lots of speaking gigs. If that book were a food, what would it be and why?
That was the food. Cucumbers. Because you do have to be cool. Yeah. I'll tell you how this book came about. This is not a book about how to be a speaker, really. There's a chapter in there about that, but not really. There are a lot of books on speaking, and there are a lot of people that are very passionate about speaking, and a lot of them join the premier association for speakers called the National Speakers Association. And whenever I've gone to a meeting there, boy, they're just the passion that people have just spills out and permeates the room. But I looked at the speakers' books and said, they might have one chapter on how to go out and find speaking engagements, but they don't have much more. So I thought, how about if I did a book that was just focused on the tactics of finding speaking engagements? And that's what this is. And interestingly, look out, when you do something first. This was about 5 years ago, this book came out. And if you go on Amazon now, you're going to see 4 or 5 books, the same thing, how to find speaking engagements. So I'm just here to say I'm the original, but that's where this came about. And so I tried to cover all the basics that one needs in order to set themselves up to do some speaking and to get engagements and more of them. In the particular, in the beginning, the first chapter is called "Getting Your Ducks in a Row," and it's basically just putting all the information that you need down on let's say a sheet, or put it on your website or something, so that when you're proposing yourself as a speaker, maybe particularly for a major conference or something, they're going to ask all kinds of questions, on these online forms that they have you fill out. So have all this stuff down in one place so that you can easily get to it and not have to reinvent the wheel every time. So that's a way of kind of setting things up. Chapter 3 is authoring a book. Again, I talked about that before, why that's significant. And then going through not just formal proposals, but maybe the more important informal. There are situations that you can have that will help you pass your name around, and doing programs like yours, Dom, so that people hear about me, and they know that we're talking a lot about me as a literary agent here and an author, but I am a speaker as well. So just whatever you can do to kind of keep passing the word around, or keep that word passing around, is important. There's also the issue of creating your own speaking engagements. A lot of people are very successful doing that. And one thing in particular that's nice about Zoom now, and how that's all developed in the last few years, is that you can do, like, what, again, I'll keep going back to you, Don, but what you're doing right now is not requiring you to get people in a room, all at once in the same location, and having that room be, let's say, in a hotel. It might cost $1,000 or whatever to rent, and then you got to have food, and you got to have this and that. I've done that in the past, and it's kind of fun when it happens and it comes up, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So the rise of podcasts and Zoomcasts, that you can sit where you are, I can sit where I am, everybody else listening can sit where they are. Just come into your room in your house or your office and just sit and just spend that hour listening, or us talking or whatever, instead of having to. The other thing is, like, if you're going to fly off somewhere to a conference, now you got to pack, and right, you got to plan it. You got to go to the airport. You got to fly. You got to go to the check in the hotel. The next day, you might be doing your thing. You might only be talking for an hour or maybe two, and you're done. So now you either fly home that night, or maybe stay a day and do some sightseeing and home the next day. But it's all that time. It's practically a week. Or it could be a week if there were two speaking engagements. But two speaking engagements virtually are 2 hours at home. So things have changed, and that allows you to set up your own speaking engagements and then get them out to your email list and all, and do it with a lot less muss, fuss, time, trouble, toil, problems, and investment of cash. So that's what the book's about. And then the last thing to say about it is that, I talk in both books about what I call the pillars of thought leading, my 5 pillars of thought leading. And those are, number one, publish your ideas. That's the most important thing, because that underscores your credibility. So that could be a book, but it doesn't have to be. It could be articles. You could be writing articles that get published by publications. I don't mean an article that you just post on LinkedIn, or an article that you put on your website or something, but something that some publication has thought your idea, your article is really of value for their readers, so they've published you. And that's publishing your ideas. Get the word out. And then secondly is speaking to groups. We've just been talking about that. Third is what I call fresh thinking, and that's I was talking before about originality and original ideas. There are ways to generate original ideas beyond just doing your job with your clients, and those are things like taking surveys or writing an article where you interview a lot of other experts on something. And then the fourth one is the fourth pillar is creatively leveraging the internet. LinkedIn is a great way to do that. Email marketing. What I'm going to do with this, and I imagine you will as well, Dom, is I'm going to send this out once the recording is set to be sent out. I'm going to send it out to my email list. I have a few thousand on my email list. I'm going to give you publicity. I'm going to give myself publicity that way. And that's leveraging the internet in a way that's of value to you. And the fifth one is called vigorously using the media. What I mean by that is the traditional media, getting interviewed by a newspaper or get a TV station or something like that. I actually position that as number five as opposed to higher up for the reason that of all of them, that's the one that where you have the least control. So, for example, if you've ever been interviewed by a newspaper and then the article came out, you were misquoted, or maybe your company name was wrong or was left out or whatever, you don't get a chance to see the article before it comes out in that context. So that's true of most traditional media. So I say that it's a good thing to do as an adjunct. So I forgot why I'm even telling you all that, but I know it's relevant.
Hey, well, it's great content and really something for folks to really take notes on. This is one of those pen moment podcast episodes where it's like, oh, you better be taking some good notes because some good stuff, especially those who truly want to get to that thought leader status and really take their life and their career to the next level. So solid stuff, man. And we're coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive. And that is, if you were to wake up tomorrow and you were 25 again, but you're still in 2023, what advice would you give to yourself?
I would tell myself to believe that this could be done, particularly a book. I think that that's what holds a lot of people back with authoring a book is that they really would like to do it. And some of the things we've talked about here, such as wondering if they really have an original approach that publisher would care about or that people would care about to read. That's one aspect. The other is worrying about maybe are they a good enough writer, all those kinds of things. And just a sort of when I think about myself in that age group, when I was at that age, 25 to 30, let's say, I was really, you don't know how much confidence you should have, because it hasn't happened yet. So I would tell myself, it can be done. You can do it. It can be done. Have faith. Follow the path here that you're setting for yourself and go forward. Because millions of others have done whatever it is that you're focused on. Millions of others have done it. And there's no reason you can't either.
Sweet. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. Because it's so true. Millions and millions of books are published every year. That's right, indeed. Why don't you join the million? And then, better yet, after you join the million, separate yourself from the million by becoming a thought leader, indeed. And look out for folks like Ken to help you out to do just that, indeed. That's right, indeed. You will no longer be a needle in the haystack. You'll be the whole haystack. That's right,
Yeah,
indeed.
exactly. Exactly.
That's right, indeed. When they shout, hey, it's like, hey, I'm here. Literally.
That's your name. That's your name. Hey, you. I guess you could be name too.
That's right, indeed. Well, for those need to keep up with you and your haystack, that's the size of Jupiter content. What's the best way for folks to do so, my man?
First of all, if they can remember this, it's my website is thoughtleading.com. It's not thought leadership. It's not thought leader. It's thoughtleading.com. Or my name. What did we talk about with that story we talked about earlier? That I don't remember that speaker's name. Well, if they can remember my name and how to and spell it correctly, which is Lizotte, Lizotte. It's French Canadian name. And if you Googled me, I would come up quite a bit. So any way that they could get to me, also, so thoughtleading.com, if they want to email me, ken@thoughtleading.com, just Ken. And last thing I would say, if any of your listeners would like to ask me questions or whatever, or just let me know that they heard this show, I have a few free gifts for them that have to do with what we've been talking about. For example, I have a couple of condensed digital versions of my book that, free of charge, I would send to your listeners. And I put them also on my email list so that they can get updates and tips on how to be a thought leader, among other topics. And just a nice follow up thank you package from me to them. All they have to do is just email me, let me know that they heard me on your show. So ken@thoughtleading.com or thoughtleading.com or Ken Lizotte, Google that.
Woohoo! And there you have it, folks. Keep up with the kind Ken himself. A man's got goodies for you indeed. That's right, indeed. Goodies that'll help you advance. So check out all his wonderful goods. We'll put a link to all of his things in the show notes. That way you can keep up with his journey, subscribe to his list, and cop some copies of his books indeed, my friends. So my goodness, any parting words before we close up shop, Ken?
Just that I promised you cucumbers, so I got to keep my word. So I'm going to have to send you a few. Probably have to put in one of those Amazon refrigerated boxes or something. But I'll do what I can, Dom. I appreciate your having me on your show. It's a good time.
If you're hearing this part of the episode, that means you're one cool individual. Thanks a bunch for tuning in, and if you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to share it with at least one other person in your network. Bonus points for 3. And be sure to check out the backlog too while you're at it, because there are hundreds of wonderful episodes to choose from as well.